changes to the agenda? Do we need a motion to approve it, or Ray, or?
Yeah. Yes.
Move
Yep.
to
Is
approve.
there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Okay. Second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is official. We have the minutes of the February 8th meeting. Were there any changes to them? They're in the packet.
I'd move to accept them.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The minutes are accepted. We have a public forum. Jason, do you want to be considered public, or?
I'll wait until we get to the property that I'll be going over.
Okay. We'll skip over that, and our next item is the certificate of appropriateness for front porch and rear entry alterations, garage demolition, and construction of a detached garage at 721 Douglas Avenue in Old Town Historic District. Ray, do you want to present?
Okay. Yeah, I can start. I'll go through each proposal that they have. I'll start with the front porch, and this is a plan view of the property. 8th Street is here at the top. This is sidewalk. This is sidewalk along 8th, and then Douglas Avenue over here. So it faces Douglas.
We are not seeing anything, Ray.
Oh, you're not. Oh, okay. Hang on just a minute. I didn't put it up there yet. There we go. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Let's see. How about now?
It is. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. This is the site plan. It shows the plan view of the property and changes that are proposed. Maybe first I'll just show you all the different ones on this plan. Again, 8th Street is here at the top. This is Douglas Avenue. This is the existing house, and it faces Douglas. And there's a porch on there now. They plan to rebuild that porch, the front porch. So that's one of the items you'd be acting on now, this evening. They want to create a rear entry in this location. And then presently the garage is located here in this kind of stippled area right here. And then they want to demolish that and build a new garage here. And with the garage doors, two single garage doors facing the back of the house. So to get to the garage, you come off 8th Street on the driveway here and then turn into the garage. And it shows grass pavers. That's not something that's up to the commission to approve, but the municipal engineer for the city would need to approve those. And that's something that is possible to approve. It just is a matter of making sure that the pavers you're proposing can withstand the weight from the vehicles that will be on the pavers and so forth. So the applicant will need to work through the municipal engineer to get that approval. Okay, so now back to the front porch, this location here. And the new work will include frost footing, split face masonry block units to match as closely as possible the foundation on the rest of the house, with vented openings, a knee wall that instead of the balustrade that you typically see. There's like this, not quite a half wall, but a shorter wall goes along the edge here. That's part of what they're proposing. And then new stairs and railings. Here's the stairs, and there'll be a railing on each side. And I might mention the knee wall isn't required by the building code, according to what I've been told by the inspections office, as long as it's less than 30 inches above the ground level where the porch is. So they intend to grade it so that it's less than 30 inches, but they're still going to have the handrails and the knee wall. And then the rear entry in the house in this location, presently there's a window there. Let me see if I can go to another plan here. Okay. Okay, this is looking at the back side of the house. Right now there's a window there, and they want to put in a rear entry with the steps and a landing. Looking at the side view, it would look like this, with that shed roof over the landing. And again, here's the front porch, looking at an elevation of that, and then looking at the side elevation of the two. Similar design characteristics, except the decking on the porch will be a composite decking. Both sets of stairs will have wood steps, and then the landing here, or excuse me, the landing back here for the back door, that will be wood. So those are what we call the alterations to the house. And then,
Ray, could I speak up just one quick thing on the porch?
sure.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
There's 4 existing columns that will be
Oh, yes.
salvaging, and a couple of the base caps and things will be reworked. But basically, the existing roof structure and everything above is going to remain. It'll just be temporary braced to do the new work, and those 4 columns will kind of be reworked, refinished, and some new bases will be put on along with that configuration. So it's very similar to what's there now. The current porch does not have a frost footing, so it's settling. So it'll be repairing that work and a kind of a, yeah.
Yeah, and the posts now are boxed in, aren't they?
They're partially boxed in. I'm not sure if it was the previous owner or the current owner started to remove some of those. The windows were removed, but they are still partially boxed in right now.
Okay.
It had been.
Okay.
When you say boxed in, do you mean the porch was enclosed?
Well, yeah, the porch was enclosed, but the posts were enclosed in wood, so you couldn't really see the posts. It just looked like a boxed in.
Yeah.
Instead of the detail you get on the posts, it was just a square boxed in feature. Yeah, thanks, Jason, for adding those things. And then the proposed garage will have a roof pitch to match that of the house, 2 single wide garage doors, and the garage doors aren't quite this design. There's the ones that they plan to use have 3 rows of 4 raised panels. Then above there, they have a row of glazed openings that match the size of the raised panels below. They will plan to use cement-based siding, lap siding, with a 2.33-inch exposed surface. And it'll have gutters and downspouts. There will be a door and a window on the north side. And the door, it's a steel door with glazing in the top half, and then a double hung window. That will be a wood window, but it will have, oh, Jason, what do you call that? The metal covering over the wood.
Aluminum clad wood.
Yeah, cladded. Yep, aluminum clad on there, which is allowed on a garage, and the cement-based siding it is as well, and a hip style roof to match the house. So they're picking up architectural features from the house with the siding and the roof pitch and the roof shape, and then it will have trim to match the trim on the house as well. So they're doing quite a lot to try to tie that in with the architecture of the house. Okay, I'm gonna move down here to some photos of the existing. Here's those posts. You see they're kind of boxed in there on the front porch here. So that'll be a really nice improvement for that front porch. And then here's down below here in the right corner. That's where that new door opening would go. Kind of the main issue is the existing garage. This is a photo of the existing garage. The doors it has on it, I'm sure, are not the original doors. I'm not sure about the windows or the siding, but very possibly the siding is original and the windows too. There is quite a bit of deterioration, which I'm sure Jason will talk about more with the structure, with the bowing walls and some holes in the roof and rotting wood and settling because there's no foundation.
Hey, Ray?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So on the photo on the right there, is that shed roof addition in the back? Is that the bump out that the applicant talks about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, back here. And I think Jason will have some pictures to show that to you a little closer. But yes, they added a 2-foot deep bump out because the garage was only 18 feet deep, and I'm sure that extra 2 feet then allowed you to park a car in there, more of a modern sized car. It's a dirt floor. There's no foundation. But for demolition, there is a section in the code for demolishing garages that are considered to be contributing garages, and this is one of those. In the actual site sheet, it said it was built in 1912, which we found out really is not the case. That the house was built in 1912, but the garage, as you look at the Sanborn maps, Sanborn fire insurance maps that show some footprints of the house and the outbuildings, show that this footprint of this garage wasn't there until after 1926, and it was built sometime between 1926 and 1947. But it still is listed as contributing. It would be more than 50 years old. which is kind of a rule of thumb with the National Register. Something that's 50 years old or older, you can designate as historic. And I know there's many exceptions to that, but it's still at least 50 years old. But it was not built when the site sheet said it was built. And then there's factors for the commission to consider with demolition. Because demolition is prohibited unless the commission can find that either this is not a contributing garage, or that the garage is not practicable to retain it on the site. So the commission would have to find one of those two things. And then there's factors for the commission to look at in the code. One of the factors has to do with historical significance. And as I was just talking about in the site sheet, it has been stated that this is significant, that it is a contributing structure in the district. And so the applicant is not disputing that. And then another factor is architectural integrity. The commission will consider if the architectural design of the structure has been altered and or sufficient historic material has been removed in such a way that it compromises the overall integrity of the building. This may include a combination of the following: removal or alteration of original door and or window openings, removal or alteration of original garage / barn / pedestrian doors, installation of artificial siding, alteration of the original building footprint and or roof line, and loss of original materials due to removal or deterioration. And again, the applicant has pointed out there's no frost footing. It's a dirt floor, it's settling. There's a lot of rotting, bowing of walls, leaning of the framing, and just a lot of overall deterioration. As staff, we believe that there's still integrity to the building that hasn't been lost. We would agree that it has, all those things that the applicant says is wrong with it, but we think the structure still has historic integrity. So another factor is functionality, that the commission will consider whether or not the structure can be put to any reasonable use. For example, a historic one-car garage may be too small to accommodate a modern-day vehicle, but may still function as a place for storage. And again, the applicant has asserted that the existing garage is insufficient in size to accommodate modern vehicles, but has not really proposed an alternative use for the existing garage. This lot is a substandard size lot, and there's not room on the lot to save the garage and build a new one, and meet the zoning standards. And then another factor the commission is supposed to consider is structural condition. The commission will consider if one or more significant structural problems exist and whether or not rehabilitation of that structure would result in most of the historic materials being replaced, resulting in essentially a new building. When assessing structural condition, the following factors may be considered: quality of original construction, bowing walls, lack of foundation, extensive siding repair, termite damage, rotted wood, and integrity of the roof system. And, you know, as we talked about, it has a number of those things. There's really no dispute that the structure is in a state of disrepair due to lack of maintenance and upkeep. But we really don't have any information that's been presented about rehabbing or repairing the structure. And then the last factor is location on the property. The commission may consider the building's location on the property and whether or not it is visible from the public street or alley when assessing the impact that demolition will have on a historic district. However, location alone typically does not justify demolition. If the contributing garage is insufficient in size for modern day vehicles, effort should be made to construct a new garage on another portion of the site to accommodate the vehicles. Well, you know, it is a very visible garage in the district. But again, it's not possible to build another structure on that site and keep the garage. So there are design guidelines in the ordinance for new construction of the garage, and staff has gone through those design guidelines. I'd be happy to talk about any of those, but the proposed garage seems to meet those design guidelines. And then there are design criteria for the type of architecture. And again, the changes being made to the front porch, the rear entry, and the new garage are consistent with those design criteria. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the front porch and the back entry are alterations. And looking at those design guidelines, we believe they meet those as well. So the main issue is whether or not they can demolish the garage. So there's an alternative that staff has written here, that the Historic Preservation Commission can deny approval of a certificate of appropriateness to allow demolition due to lack of supporting information for determining it is not practicable to retain the garage on the site as defined within Chapter 31, and therefore deny approval of the construction of a new garage on the site. And that's A. And then B is issue a certificate of appropriateness for alterations to the existing front porch and alterations to construct a rear entry on the back of the house located 721 Douglas Avenue, if it finds that the proposed new construction of the garage and alterations to the front porch and rear entry to the house are consistent with the adopted design guidelines and design criteria. So based on our analysis of the proposal to demolish the garage, the staff has not found evidence from the applicant that the existing garage is not a contributing garage, nor is the evidence that it is not practicable to retain the existing historic garage based on the factors described in the report, despite the need for upkeep and maintenance in its current state. So we're recommending denial of the demolition of the garage, but approval of the front porch and the rear entry. That's the extent of my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And I know Jason has some information he'd like to present as well.
Ray, would you mind going to the last page?
Oh, on the report?
Yeah. Well, or the document you were just on. It's probably.
Oh, the document I just had?
Yeah.
Okay.
Way down at the bottom.
Can you see it again?
Yes.
Okay.
There's some additional
there you
photos that were taken, unfortunately, with a lot of snow. Is this a good transition to talk about the existing garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
these are a couple photos, and I've got more I can kind of share, though. I'm realizing the program I thought was on this computer that I'm sitting at I don't have it, so I'll see if I can explain some of that more that way. The lap siding that is, actually go back one photo, and then I'll talk about these other in one sheet, right? There you go. The lap siding on the garage is a shiplap siding or a tongue and groove. I can't quite tell what they used, but it's more of like a Dutch lap. It doesn't match the house. Just wanted to kind of point that out. And I'm going to point out a couple things that get lost in the photo and the snow here. You can see in the corner of the garage there, you're seeing the foundation and the framing was at grade and it's kind of rotted away. And if I could show some of the photos, the sill plate, almost the entire garage has rotted away. Both windows are broken and deteriorated, or this one's just gone on the side. Ray mentioned the doors have been replaced. The building, because there's a lack of foundation, the rotted sill, the building is settling quite a bit. So on this east side, there's it kind of shows in the photo, but there's a bit of a sag that's happening on the center of the building. The whole building's leaning a couple degrees. There's not a lot of structural integrity. I can push it with my hands pretty easily. And then you can see the bump out on the back. Ray, if you go to the next page now. So the bump out on the back is on the top left. You can see the bump out on the side. If you the down one and to the right one, there you go. There's no roof remaining on that 2-foot bump out. So the 2-foot bump out was to try to get more modern vehicles to fit into the garage. Otherwise, it's only 18 foot deep. A typical car stall would need at least 19 clear for a standard vehicle. Some are even larger than that nowadays. And you can kind of see that there's not a lot of wall below that bump out. If you go to the right 4 pictures now on the interior side, that top left one, it says interior south wall, east stall. You're looking through that bump out and you're actually seeing the neighbor's fence there. So that's what it looks like. There's something there, but it's actually not. There's 3 studs and then there's nothing. And then if you go to the right photo to that one, it says interior wall south west stall. There's a little bit of a wall remaining and the roof is gone. There's nothing really connecting what is the roof structure and the wall is just completely rotted out. The interior south wall, you can kind of see where they put a board over one of the windows there. And again, the structure's in pretty bad shape. When I went and did this, when Ray and I were talking, I didn't have the best view of things, but I went back Friday and took a few more. So is it possible to present my screen?
Yes, yeah, I'll stop sharing and then let you share.
And we'll see if this will work here. Well, all right. So I'm just going to talk through some of these here. Let's see if this works, because this is not the program I was going to show the photos on. Talked about the lap siding. Talked about the leaning garage here. The grade of the garage is about a foot lower than the drive and everything to it. So right now all the water's running down to that. You can see the conditions where there's no foundation and the sill is going to be rotted out. And I get you some interior photos. So the doors don't shut currently because everything's settling and falling in. You can kind of see the bow on that elevation. There's that additional bump out that was added. And I think that's bowing because it's settling. And this is on the other side. So this is the broken window that would be the closest to historic, and then this is kind of the other side of the bump out. And here's some photos I took on Friday. So this is actually the framing that you're seeing. The sill plate has rotted away and the foundation's all broken up underneath there. So everything's kind of settling and falling in on itself. There's the roof conditions. The asphalt shingles are completely deteriorated. There's significant roof rotting, holes through things. Again, that photo. There's the roof conditions. It's a little bit blurry. You can see that there's not even framing material there. That was earlier. It's kind of looking from the west view here. Woodpeckers are taking over. That's that view, that bump out on the south between the fence. That's it on the interior side where it's in better shape. This is the original roof structure. So it was reclaimed wood originally when they built it. A lot of it's just scabbed together with different material that they had around. You can see where things are rotting away and falling through. There's a lot of leaks going on right now. Kind of see another spot where the decking is just rotting away. A few more photos of that. You see some of the corners where it's worse. That's the bump out, the roof right above the bump out. This is showing quite a bit of dry rot that's going on. So the shiplap siding or tongue and groove siding boards that are used, it is the decking material. So it's just one board that's applied. And without the paint that's been lacking over the years, a lot of moisture is coming through. So it's showing quite a bit of moisture deterioration. And I'll keep moving here. You can see the snow coming through, and this is looking towards the west side. So it's a gap in the flooring or the wall right now. Again, there's that gap. The roof conditions. Kind of already showed these. I think I've got a couple photos of the sills where you can see where they're rotted away. There's not really much wall to even salvage on the south side. Yeah, and so then this is the sill conditions. They're completely rotted. And see it here in the corner. And I had one more that apparently didn't come in, or it's just gone. It was kind of an earlier photo on the west. So I'm in favor of preservation, but there's a point when somebody redoing the work is going to take more. It's going to take a lot of extra effort to try to make some of this work. Some of the framing that's touching all the rotted sills, they're wet, showing deterioration. It just seems more than 50% of the entire structure's significantly deteriorated. And starting from the bottom up, it's rotting away, foundation's gone. So it's, even if you were to try to salvage some of it, everything's going to be warped and deteriorated over time. That's going to be hard to work with. So Ray touched on it too. The zoning standards require 20-foot clear to the property line. So if you look, the new design has the building rotated so the overhead doors come in from the east. And that's to allow for a vehicle to park behind the garage. Currently, that's not possible. as it is. Well, I guess it is, but it's over the setback requirements. So I don't know how we would work through some of that. I know if you were to take it and rotate it, we looked at that, and the rear bump out's kind of concealed right now, but it would be very front and center on 8th Street, seeing the side of that bump out, and all of that would have to be rebuilt. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to grow the garage to accommodate a bump out for that. So.
Ray, I walked over to the site is about a half block west of my house. And I walked over there just before our meeting. I walked back in and looked between the neighbor's fence and the back of the facility, or the back of the garage. And apparently part of the problem is that in the past, weed trees have been allowed to grow between there because you really couldn't get in to do much about it. There were stumps about 6 to 8 inches, 2 of them back there that had grown, and I'm sure were shading and intruding on that back, the back wall of the bump out. So the only thing I see as valuable about the garage at all is the historic significance that quite a few garages had those bump outs added to them to make it. But the bump out is not really visible from any public area. You walk back in the yard to see that. My main thing is the garage where it is basically separates the house from its yard. The yard is back to the west, and at the back of the yard is a very modern garage built by the high-rise condos at 8th Street, and that'd be Kellogg, I think. So that's, I guess to me, it would be preferable to have a usable backyard with a garage matching the house back there, blocking the totally non-conforming garage behind it. So I would vote to allow the garage demolition and the construction of a new garage matching the style of the house. I think the extent of deterioration is sufficient to that, along with the awkward placement of the garage. Those 2 factors, I think, are sufficient to allow the demolition and replacement.
Yeah, I would agree with Peter. I think, and actually disagree with the city on this one, Ray, because I think this lacks integrity. I mean, when you look at the amount of material that's essentially gone, you know, you have modern, those are metal, right? Those doors, the garage doors are metal. The garage door system inside is non-historic. I mean, I think a sound argument could be made that it lacks integrity right there. You guys have heard me say this before, but, you know, I also don't like to split hairs on at least what I see as kind of minor issues within the historic district. I think we want to encourage people to live in that neighborhood. It's a sustainable neighborhood. It's a walkable neighborhood. When we get bogged down in issues like this, I think when it's clear that it would require a massive amount of intervention just to save a building that was built, you know, nearly 100 years ago or 80 years ago or whatever, doesn't suit our needs today. I think we have, you know, bigger proverbial fish to fry than this. So I would agree with, I think what I heard you say, Peter, is choose the alternative that allows the demolition. I guess one question I did have though is, Ray, you had mentioned in the write-up that there are a lot of questions put out to the applicant, but we didn't get any responses. I mean, is that, I don't know if that would change my mind, but is there a reason for that?
Well, what happened, not trying to throw Jason under the bus, but, he did a good job of presenting information on the condition of the garage, the deterioration and all of that. We, just looking at the factors to consider, we just wondered if there was any more, addressing some of those factors that he could provide. He wasn't able to come up with anything on that, but you're not required to meet all the factors. I mean, these are factors that the commission is supposed to consider. So it's not like a requirement you have to meet every factor, but for example, is there some other use that the garage could be put toward, or to save it?
Yeah. That would
I don't know that the homeowners really even considered that.
Yeah, I think that puts a huge burden on the owner. I mean, and would it preclude a new garage too, right? Because of setbacks.
Well, because of the amount of space in the backyard,
Because of the underside.
and setback as well. Because it's a difficult. That's why the garage has to be turned to face the back of the house. If it faces the street, you can't set it back from the street to meet the minimum setback. So, I don't know how you build a second garage keeping that one.
Yeah, I've seen buildings in far worse condition than this brought back to life, but it comes at a tremendous cost, and I'm uncomfortable even entertaining that for a property owner. Again, we want them to live in that neighborhood and continue to, there are the other things we reviewed as part of this application, I think are all, of course I know Jason, we all know Jason, he does good work. He knows Secretary of the Interior standards. I would hate to slap this owner on the wrist for a garage that's a real problem, real preservation problem. So,
I don't remember seeing, I'm in agreement with Peter, and this seems like a really far gone, it's been allowed to deteriorate. It hasn't been used as a car garage, I don't think, for some time. But the mentioning of the shiplap siding that's on the garage, I'm assuming that any new construction would be something that would replicate the siding on the house. I don't remember seeing that, but I'm assuming that would be, if they were going to be approaching this as a new construction, that they would be doing something along those lines.
Susan, that's correct. So there's a 2.33 inch lap siding that would match the house that's proposed for the garage. Okay. And same for the trim around the corners and windows, it would match the house.
So it could seem like the more seems. The other thing that always kind of bothered me is when they said, when you guys were doing the background of this particular structure, I'm thinking, this looks like the third iteration of a garage for this particular location. I'm not sure how many.
At least the second.
Garages were built in the 20s, that's just something that, being, from the history side of it, I would be, wanting to dig a little deeper in the saber and saying, are they sure this is the one?
Susan, were you kind of perplexed by the 2-car garage, the size of it, or?
Just a bit. I mean,
I did.
Huge size garage, but I'm thinking, I'm not thinking it is as common. I mean,
I I did a Google. I don't know that much about garages, but I Googled it, and I imagine there were 2-car garages back in the 20s and 30s, but I can't imagine there were a lot. So I don't know. Maybe that makes it more significant, but.
That's true too. But it's just one of those things that I would want to do a little, verification on, just to be sure. And like you said, this was something that was considered a contributing structure, but again, with the siding being so different from the house, that doesn't necessarily mean that they were following the guideline, so to speak, back when it was built, because it wouldn't have been under that kind of guidance. But I think we could have a better garage, let's put it that way, as a complementary outbuilding by letting this go and get a better structure.
As we were writing the report, one thing that we were thinking about is, not that it's the fault of the current property owner, because this deterioration has happened over many years, but we don't want to get in a situation where, property owners think, well, if I just let it rot and deteriorate, the city will let me tear it down, and build new, as opposed to saving an historic garage. That's one thing that we were really thinking about as we wrote the report.
Yeah, demolition by neglect, right?
Right.
Right, yeah.
It takes a long time to get something to that level of neglect.
Yeah.
I can imagine people are wanting to wait that out.
That is always a concern of those that of us living in the historic district, but overall the important thing is the livability of the property, and I think moving the garage so that cars can be parked outside the garage without hanging over the sidewalk, which the current garage location would require that, and there have been times when that has happened. I am especially happy to see the rear entrance put on the house, because I don't know if you realize from the design, but the side entrance comes out about 3 feet off the public walk, and it's actually toward the front of the house. So there was no access to the yard at all without coming out onto the public walk and walking around the house. And so it is, I think the changes that are being made are really adding to the livability and staying with the integrity of the historic district.
It's a small yard. This will give it a little more workable space, really.
Hey, Jason, I had one question. So the porch, is it replicating some known previous porch, or are you just working with the materials that are there and just kind of fixing them up? I wasn't clear about that.
When I read through the background for the building, and I don't know if that's in here or not, those columns appear to be matching. And Ray, you can speak up if you think that's wrong, but I think those columns are original to the building, to the structure.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
They were just boxed in when the porch was enclosed to have a vertical.
I think when they put the windows in, rectifying the ornate column profile to the windows, it was easier to box them in, and that's why we did that. Yeah, there you go. So the photo on the left, you can see some vertical white lines next to the columns. Those are still the vertical boards that are remaining after they took the windows out. And there's kind of a filled-in box where the opening is between the columns. So they kind of got some windows, maybe from some other project, I don't know, but they lowered the head height to get those windows to fit. And then there's still a box where those were located. So all of that's going to get cleaned up and opened up.
I think one thing that wasn't mentioned in the presentation here is the knee wall there is actually at a historic height, and it
Yes.
take a waiver of current standards to
Actually, I talked to inspections about that, and it would require a waiver if that knee wall was required by the building code, or a balustrade for safety purposes. But since it's going to be less than 30 inches above grade, they're not required to have it, so they can have it at that height without a waiver.
Okay.
Just barely.
But good point. Good point, though.
Yeah. So the infill that you see where the doors are, there's white panels on both sides of the entry door that goes to the porch. That'll all be open as well. So it's kind of taking it back to the original opening size that was there. And I think the knee wall that we're seeing right here is original. Foundation block that you're seeing is original. The new design mimics that air space. There's kind of a vent that they did for a pattern, so we picked up on that. Trying to maintain the history that was there, but a structure that's going to last another 100 more years, hopefully. So.
So does somebody want to make a motion for one of the alternatives?
I'll do it, if I may. I don't have it in front of me, but can I make a motion to support the issuance of the COA? Is there not?
Alternative one.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Alternative one, where you're allowing demolition of the garage and then issuing a certificate of appropriateness as well for the front porch and the rear entry.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be alternative one.
So we have a motion to approve alternative one. Is there a second?
I can second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, nay. Alternative one is approved, and which is the COA for the project and demolition permit.
Hey, Jason?
Yes, Ted.
Can I, or maybe you already have this, but I think it would be interesting to, for the city to have some of your photos of the garage, on hand. I think Peter, you said there are other examples in the district of those bump outs, and I think it would just, for purposes of historical, just for history, to have those things on hand to refer to down the road. Would you mind sharing some of those photos with the city?
I can do that, definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next item, Eloise is here to talk about the awards.
Okay. Turn it over to you, Eloise.
All right. Good evening. I'm just going to do a quick introduction to the awards. There's a summary sheet, a memo that you have. There were two different projects that were nominated, with actually the first one was nominated by two different people, including Peter was one of the people nominating it. And it's located at 802 Burnett Avenue. The owner is Angie and Dan Klotz. The category is historic rehabilitation. This project was pretty amazing in the detail of the research that they did and their effort to take it back to the historic information, based on the historic information that they did. The property appraiser indicates that the property was built in 1910 as a single family residence. It was built in the Queen Anne style and features 3 stories, front and side gables, bays, wraparound porch, clapboard wood siding, brick foundation, fish scale detailing, and attached double garage. As I mentioned, there was comprehensive historic rehabilitation done based upon hours of investigative research. From the painting of the building was totally stripped. The wood was totally stripped down in a paint that was based with a linseed oil that they had researched and determined to be the most protective type of paint was utilized. The porch, you may remember when this came through quite a few years back, it was determined that that front gable was really important and they were able to keep it just as it was, but then the rest of the porch had deteriorated and was not, it had been changed so it didn't replicate the historic porch that had been there. So they were able to replace all of the brick to match the brick of the house and to redo that porch and decking. And while it was structurally supported so that the roof and that gable could be preserved. The new owners took possession in 2017, and that's when they began their work. It took 3 years to complete. Not only did they do the porch and the painting of the stripping and painting, they did windows. They did a lot of interior improvements, sidewalk, patio, and site drainage. I think one value of the porch is that it is so visibly significant to the district. This property is on the corner, so you actually, it's not just a rehabilitation of something that you don't see. It really is showcasing that property and its historic value. So the existing porch was actually structurally unsound with leaning piers and rotten flooring. So I'm gonna stop there because I think what you might want to do is discuss this one first before we move on to the next one, because the next one's in a different category. Does that make sense to you, Peter?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So a question about this, Eloise, you said that we saw this a couple years ago. Was this the one that had the double hung sashes that were replaced with a fixed light? And then no, this is a different one. Okay, sorry.
No, this one, we issued a COA 2 years ago for this exact project. But I think what was really amazing to me is they hand built wooden storm windows to replace the aluminum storm windows on the entire second floor. They tried it out and decided that it was actually a much better seal and everything than the first floor had newer aluminum windows, and the wooden ones that they built themselves up for the second floor are much better soundproofing and much tighter seal for air leaks than the modern aluminum ones.
So one thing I'll add is that this house has not been single family the entire time. At one point, it was rented out into about 3 units, I believe. Ray can correct me if I'm wrong, but a number of years back, we requested the property owners to give us a tour during some of their remodeling and their refurbishing, rehabilitation work. And lo and behold, this is just a side note, but Ray actually lived in this house at one point when he was attending ISU. So back when it was not single family.
Neat.
So you have copies of the applications from both Peter and the other neighbor that submitted this property for an award with pictures and with the descriptions. Are there any questions that I can try to answer? So one of the important things about rehabilitation is where, as it says in the criteria, it recognizes the repair and altering of a building or a feature so that the structure has the appearance that such a building would have had 50 or more years ago based on historic documentation for similar buildings of that time in Ames. This rehabilitation usually involves removing later work and repairing or reconstructing a distinctive feature or features of the building that may have been removed or substantially altered, and or repairing one or more distinctive features that remain intact on the building. So it's my personal belief that this is a stellar example of that category. And even when they were submitting for their permission to do this work, they submitted a whole booklet of information about what they were intending to do. It was one of the best submissions that that I believe Ray had ever seen, and certainly that I had ever seen. So I really commend the property owner for their work on this project.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting how similar this is to the project we just dealt with, because this one also had its porch enclosed and everything. And so a lot of the restoration of the porch on the project Jason's working with is right along the same lines as this. It's not quite as prominent a porch, but it's 2 blocks east of this, and it will also be a very visible example of rehabilitation. And speaking for the residents of the district, we're very proud when we see things like this happening.
Does anybody want to make a motion for an award, or would you like me to continue and explain the next one, the next category?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
This is, I mean, if we're in the business of awarding good renovation, this is perfect example.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. We have one award here. Next.
All right, the next item is located at 319 to 321 Main Street. It was previously known as the RM Wilcox Building. So it's located downtown. At one time, it was Schwank's Jeweler, was in the lower retail area of the building. And so this is how it looks today with the work that they did. It's one of those projects that's not as apparent as the last one. but the category they're looking to fit within is the adaptive reuse category. The adaptive reuse category recognizes retention of the principal features of a building and in a sympathetic way, modifying it for modern uses. Although such changes may not be strictly consistent with the original appearance of the modified building or of other historic buildings constructed in the same time period. So I have a notation right after that part that describes the criteria. I noted that the term adaptive reuse generally refers to more than modernization, but rather a historic retrofit that enables a change of use from the original purpose or design of the building or site from what was intended. Some of the projects in the past that have been awarded under this category were the project, one of the award winners last year, which was Cornbread at the old rail depot. Another one has been the Crawford or the Roosevelt, where it was a school, and then it was reused. It was retrofitted to be used as housing. So that was a change of use. This particular project, they've retained the existing uses. There's still retail, the first level, which was historically the case, and the second level is still housing. It was an apartment. They did a lot of work on that second floor apartment and really made it a nice, modern, livable space. But the questions that staff has on this project is, does it really fit into the category of adaptive reuse, because it's not a change of use. So in summary about the submittal, there were new owners in 2019, and they were the ones that retrofitted the historic building for modern use. They retained the existing uses. They did historically appropriate maintenance and restoration of the front facade, including tuck pointing, masonry, and terracotta tile repairs. They put in new upper story paired windows, replicating historically accurate muntins. The previous windows were not original. Remodeled the deteriorated upper apartment to an open floor plan with modern fixtures, updated the HVAC, plumbing and electrical systems, reinforced rafters, and restoration of the original flooring. They added a new expanded rear deck and connected roof drainage to the city system. So the application form is attached, and the pictures are before you. You can see how it was made to be a very, very nice apartment space, and very modern, with keeping the historic flooring. They kept the historic doors. But my question to staff is, does it fit within this category for this award? And I welcome your questions and your comments.
Do we know that the second story was indeed residential all along?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very good chance it was, but it could has easily been office space, because that's obviously very common too. But
the application speaks of it being an apartment before.
Yeah.
It wasn't, that's my neighbor, and it was an apartment, but where I live, it was office space, and I'm guessing that it was also office space. Originally, I know there weren't any closets. He added closets for the new apartment redo that he's done. Yeah, that's just I think originally it was office space.
Yeah, that would have been my guess too, which would make it adaptive reuse.
Right. We're going to get there.
I see your point, Eloise, and you're right. I mean, adaptive reuse assumes that it goes from one use to another, but I mean, couldn't we just easily call this rehabilitation then, if not adaptive reuse?
Yeah, it could be historic rehabilitation.
I think the front of the building, you know, they left some of the changes that had been made before that had been in place for a while. So I really don't see it as historic rehabilitation, especially given the last application that was historic rehabilitation. So I would want to distinguish it differently from the last application, which I think was so perfectly matched to historic rehabilitation.
You know, these, I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Actually, rehabilitation by Park Service standards typically needs adaptive reuse. I know that's kind of splitting hairs too, but I mean, I would almost see the first building as being more of a, what the Park Service calls a restoration, which is a little different. But I see your point. I mean, it is different than the one we're looking at here. Are we just trying to find a label to give this one, or do we have reservations about the project itself?
I don't have any reservations about the project. I think it's worthy. I think it is a matter of checking. What's the original construction date of this?
Right. My understanding, 1922 to 1923.
We should be able to look at city directories to see whether that was a residence or a office location. Or, I mean, there'd be a possibility we might be able to check that with a city directory from that period. But I guess I'm not uncomfortable with, since so much of the downtown was offices on the second floor, with leaving it at adaptive reuse.
Well, I would say that the definition and the award criteria really doesn't speak to a change of use. I believe, this is just my personal belief, that the award criteria that we published as adaptive reuse, that it does fit that category.
Okay.
But I guess my question is that my understanding of what adaptive reuse is a little different than what our definition states. And so it might be that we can move forward with an award in this category, given what's published as the criteria. But it might also be that staff kind of thinks that we probably should take some time to look over our categories and make sure they're in line with what you want them to be and how they're described,
Yeah.
At a future meeting.
I would be fully in support of that, because I know we're cribbing definitions from the Park Service, but we're kind of getting them a little jumbled up here. When we talk about rehabilitation, restoration, adaptive reuse, Park Service has very clear standards when it comes to the four types of kind of intervention into an historic building. And if we can just, kind of replicate those and, for the next round of awards, I think that would clear up a lot of the confusion.
But I think if this fits the definition as we published it, then it's appropriate to go ahead and leave it in this category.
Was this funded with tax credits or UAR or LIHTC or anything? Does it have any other? Is it just private funding, or is there any public funding on this?
I don't believe there's public funding with this round.
Okay.
Probably in the past there was some public funding. I'm sorry, I don't really have specifics on that.
You know, just one of the things I would have liked to have seen called out in the nomination, and maybe I missed it, but you know, it's akin to what I was saying about changes in the Old Town Historic District. You know, trying to avoid the nitpicky, you know, changes that don't have any sort of substantive value within the district. I think this is a clear case of somebody making an investment in the downtown. You know, putting new residents in the downtown, putting new additional traffic on the street in the downtown. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons to support this above and beyond the preservation angle. I think this is, I'd love to see more of this go on in downtowns, you know, all over, Ames included. So.
I agree.
Yeah, I didn't notice it in the pictures, but I think in the description, they also added a rooftop balcony or a rooftop patio type.
Yeah, the one that was there prior was maybe a quarter of the roof, and it was in pretty bad disrepair. And it's now gorgeous, and you know, iron railings and the composite deck material, and so yeah, the owner has definitely created a space that's going to be around for 50 plus more years easily. So definitely a saved property.
I'm just curious if that apartment is available.
It is.
Oh, don't tell me that.
So they are rentals. They're not condos.
This particular property?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and it's for rent. Someone said that they maybe were looking even to make it office space, perhaps, but I think that I think it's just open for rent. So I don't know anything more than that.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion for approval of this award?
I would move we approve.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. We have a second award.
All right, very well. As stated in the memo, the awardees will be honored by the mayor at the city council virtual meeting on April 27th. In the past, the chairman of the HPC is also active in making that award. I don't know if how that will work logistically since it's a virtual meeting, and we would be having a new chair at that point.
Yeah.
So maybe we just leave it with the mayor to make that award.
And am I right that last year's awardees never were celebrated?
Right, they have not received their plaques, and they weren't publicly recognized at a meeting. So they would, we would recommend that they be recognized at the same time.
Okay. Okay. We'll go on to commission comments, and what Eloise referred to there. This is my last commission meeting. My second term is up, and so I will be going off after tomorrow's presentation to the city council. So just let people know. I know the mayor was trying to finalize nominations for a replacement by last Friday, and I don't know if that's been announced yet or not. Maybe at tomorrow's meeting.
And my commission also expires, so this is also my last meeting. But I did want to say I'm still available to help you guys with the signage. I really would love to get that going. COVID's really slowed us down on that, but just know that I am wholeheartedly available to continue with that if you need whatever help you need.
Thanks.
Well, thank you guys for your service.
Yes, very much so.
Of course.
Feels like we're breaking up the band or something.
Well, it was rather interesting to have Jason part of this meeting because Jason was on the commission when I came on and then served as chair for a while. So it was interesting to see him back with us. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Then Ray, how about staff comments?
Well, as you mentioned, tomorrow night City Council has a meeting, and they will consider the changes the commission came up with to the historic preservation plan. And Peter and Edie and Ted will participate in that. Thank you. And so the hope is that they'll adopt those changes tomorrow night, and that will be something that's been in the works for a long time. But that would be nice to have those changes made. And I want to thank Peter and Lisa for serving on the commission, and really enjoyed working with you both. And you'll be missed greatly. And you both did a fantastic job on the commission, great commission members. So, you can be off for a term and then come back again.
Yeah, Jason.
If you're interested. So, and then Susan, I think you signed on for another 3 years.
Yeah, I think I
Is that right?
For a while.
Did your first term end and now you're doing a second term? Is that right?
Second.
Yes. Well, glad to have you still on the commission, and everyone else, of course. But always hate to see people leave the commission because we always miss their input and expertise and knowledge and part of the family, right?
Very much so.
Part of the band. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
So I think based on the discussion tonight, we'll plan to bring the award categories back to you and have a discussion about that. I'll talk with you, Ted, some more so that I have understanding of what you were suggesting about the 4 categories for the park department, parks, national.
I know you meant. So Ray, Eloise, do we need to try to drum up some more volunteers for this illustrious group, or?
The mayor has some nominees for tomorrow night.
Okay.
3 of them, because we were one commission member for a while here. There's supposed to be 7, and we've only had 6 for a while. Angie Colts, Mary Jo Winder, and Matt Oakley.
Okay, so Angie Colts is the homeowner for that first home.
802 Burnett. Yeah.
Oh, so she would be the Old Town representative.
Yes.
Neat.
That's right.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we'll have 3 new people. I don't know if we've ever had 3 new ones all at once, but it'll be good to get to know those people as well.
Thank you.
So is there anything else for the good of the order? And we're open to a motion to adjourn.
So,
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? I was at a meeting last week where there were several people opposed to the adjournment motion, but we adjourned anyway. Thank you all. And
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
See you later.